Welcome back to another video, guys. I really appreciate you joining me today. I want to say thank you very much for the 82 subscribers. We're climbing on up on our way to 100. Very excited about the progress that we've made so far. I know we only have a few videos, but I'm excited for what's to come. Today, I want to talk about something that I feel like really nobody else is talking about, or at least I don't see this being the headlines of any news articles or anything. But in simple terms, and this is a question for all the viewers out there. Do you think that you're smarter than a CEO? Do you think that you're smarter than Lisa Su or Jensen Huang or Sam Altman or Elon Musk? I mean, I know I don't think I'm smarter than those guys. I really try to understand what they put out. But at the end of the day, founder-led CEOs, it's hard to really get on that same mental level as them, even if you're the best analyst on Wall Street. And so I think it's really important to look at how these CEOs are operating to come up with your own decisions. And an important thing that you have to do is take the CEO's word for whatever they're saying, kind of at face value. But you don't have to just let your beliefs run there. You obviously verify with evidence, whether they're executing or not. You look at empirical data to see if they're doing what they say that they're going to do, and at least for the case of AMD, which I'll be kind of hovering around with some of these topics. I mean, we see Lisa Su executing on what she says she's going to do. She underspeaks and overdelivers. She underpromises, overdelivers. I mean, that's just her whole thing. And so, when you see CEOs like Dr. Lisa Su, like Jensen Huang, like a Sam Altman, like a Elon Musk at Tesla, when you see them being very bullish on the future of transformation and the technologies that they bring, I mean, do you really think that you have a better idea of what the future is going to look like when these guys are manufacturing it at this point in time? I don't think so. So I think, the bullish mentality has to be assumed by yourself. And like I've said in the previous video, I really believe that you're either a bull or a bear. I don't think there's much in between. I don't think there's room for any bearishness in a true bull thesis. We've seen too much transformation to doubt what's to come. In my honest opinion, I think you're going to look a lot like the horse dealer back in the 1900s, poo-pooing on Henry Ford with the new automobiles coming about, and then within a year later, you've got your entire industry transformed and from horse and buggy to automotive. So I think a similar transformation is going to make a lot of analysts that are very bearish age in a similar way. So I think it's really important to not discount the transformation that's coming, or at least the transformation that these CEOs are talking about. And as an aside, there's very little things that we have thought about as cool things that haven't really that haven't become those things. Something as simple as an undercover agent talking on his watch. That used to be something, we'll never get that. I mean, we've been doing that for years now with our Apple Watches. I'm sure people thought that C-3PO from Star Wars was never going to be a real thing. We have basically the beta versions of that with these Tesla robots. I mean, they have articulable appendages. They're able to interact with everyday life. Now, it might be, lesser interactions than we would hope for, for a humanoid type robot. But I think those things will get there in a very short amount of time. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, but, I think AI can help it be built in a week. And that's obviously a figure of speech. But, the advancements of AI, I think, are just going to be harder and harder to suppress as these models develop and get better and better. And we're in the very beginning stages of development. Applications and use have not really been created yet. It's like talking about the .com era, not in terms of the bubble, but in terms of the innovation that was coming out of it. Like, the technology that was being developed at the time was not immediately in use. It took some time for these things to happen. And granted, evolutions happen quite rapidly, as we see with a lot of tech innovations and transformations, but those things take time. And I think that timeline actually gets shortened and shortened and shortened by something like an AI model, because you don't have countless employees to watch over. An AI can work 24/7, 365 if you wanted it to. It doesn't need time off. It doesn't need workers' comp. It doesn't need Social Security. It doesn't need any of that crap. I mean, these are things that are just going to streamline, businesses. So I think the model is shifting on how businesses operate, and AI is applicable to any and every business. We see AMD working with all sorts of different companies in their embedded section, from healthcare to aerospace to automotive. I mean, and not limited to those. These are just going to be transformations that that just fundamentally shift how we live. So I think similarly to how, like I said earlier, horse and buggy went to automotive. You're not going to have to feed your car a carrot. You're not going to have to give it a break when it gets tired. There's going to be other things, new issues like maintenance and stuff like that, but you're not going to be out of transportation if your car gets a splinter in its hoof. It obviously doesn't have hooves, it has tires, but your horse might have been out of commission by getting a toe splinter, let alone breaking a leg. Oh my gosh, it's over. So I don't know. I think these things are just going to be very, very, I've said transformative a million times, but that's just the name of the game. Things are going to shift greatly. And one thing I want to say on that same vein of bullishness versus bearishness, when we hear people talk about things like bubbles, they don't really scare me as I rationalize them out. If you think about if you think about people getting excited about a technology and then getting cold feet and changing their minds, but yet that technology still comes to fruition, it still turns into something valuable and beneficial and increases the value of companies. Whether people jump in and then get cold feet and jump out, that I wouldn't call that a bubble. I would call that poor timing. Because had those people stayed in, their investments would have multiplied tenfold, or whatever factor they would increase by. But I think so many people have an instant gratification mindset that being a long-term investor for something like 5 years to a decade or more is just something people aren't interested in, and maybe there's a little bit of conflicts of interest in their thought process going. AI is going to transform everything so quickly, and so when it's not happening overnight, people are kind of losing their minds on it. And I think that's just misfounded. These things still need to be built out, but the way that they're being built out is way faster and at a way greater pace than it could have been done just by human labor alone. So when Ed Yardeni on CNBC of Yardeni Research, a longtime market analyst, talks about a bubble of bubble fears, I think that's a very poignant point to be making. I think that people are very cautious and fearful of what's happening, and those limiting beliefs, I think, are going to stunt your investment, stunt your growth, and you have to suspend your disbelief to imagine a future where where we do have driverless vehicles as a regular, where we do have robotics as a regular, where things are automated by artificial intelligence to a degree where, our lives are just fundamentally different from how we interact with them now. I think you have to suspend your disbelief to go and see that future to then start making it make sense for an investment. Yeah, thinking like that is not an uncommon way of thinking as well. That's how CEOs think. When CEOs come up with something new, something never done before, they have to, as Lisa Su says it of AMD, they have to see the future and bring it into the present. We got some birds outside going crazy. Lisa Su says she has to see the future and bring it into the present. So not only is she having to, see the future and its capabilities and then think about a technology that's going to enable that, but then also the value that it brings to customers. Okay? Not just in monetary terms, but what benefits are they getting from it? Why is it better than just status quo or the traditional way of doing things? And then beyond that, then revenues are fathomed for what they could be. Companies aren't going to just create technologies for free or for no point. These things have to bring value to their own company, and I really think that they will. And so, while looking at current market data like revenues and just company performance is very important, I'm never going to discount that. I don't think it's particularly in the first position. Execution is 100% necessary, and CEOs need to do what they say, but they also need to have a vision, like a truly transformative vision, and that's what you see with a lot of founder-led organizations. like Jensen Huang with NVIDIA. I think he's a great example and a great predictive indicator for what AMD can do, because he's done it. He took something that did not exist. He created markets. The total addressable markets were, there was nothing to address at the time. And Jensen Huang had worked very hard at improving the performance of his technology while increasing the value to customers per dollar spent. And that's just the value creation process. There's nothing crazy about that. It's a very simple process. I mean, you can let AI cloud your vision on that process, but I think it should be more of a catalyst to that. It should be more additive. AI is not unlike other innovations that have improved performance processes and business processes, but the thing that it is unlike previous innovations that have and technologies that have come out before is AI is able to streamline business exactly how I mentioned a moment ago. I mean, things that would take an immense amount of employees can be done by one person. And as things develop, you're going to have doctorate level employees in every facet of your business. No more just, Joe Schmoes that are just taking up company time. Things just radically improve. And so I think that's the direction that we're headed. I think a really important point to consider when looking at AMD is just how they've positioned themselves since Lisa Su took over. They really had to decide what they were going to be best at, and that's Lisa Su's words. Their business model was not conducive to being the best in class, and that's really been the goal of Lisa Su. And she said it before, like one of her longtime dreams is to, lead a company that is transforming the world around us, and she's doing exactly that. Not only with her vision, but with her execution. But an important point to make here is, it's not going to be a winner takes all. And Lisa Su said this. Jensen Huang has said this. There's going to be different requirements that different companies are going to be best at. There's going to be so many demand requirements that it's not going to just single one out as an ultimate winner. I don't think that NVIDIA is going to be the only winner. I don't think that AMD is going to be the only winner. But a great thing that you can do for your investments is to look at, how they're positioning themselves to win. What are they doing? And I really like what Lisa Su's doing with just the chiplet architecture that she's been working on for, I think, over a decade. Now, NVIDIA's gotten really good at making things huge and powerful, but AMD's really good at working on personalized chiplet designs that are optimized for whatever task as they come out, because they can be connected, interconnected, and reconfigured to be best at different tasks. And one benefit that we're seeing from all that strenuous labor that took years of development to get them there is their advantage in inference. So inference is the next step after training, and NVIDIA kind of stole the show on training, but I think AMD positioned themselves to be the next frontier on inference, especially AI at the edge, where you're able to have the entire model on one chip and be able to not have to reach out to some different mainframe, for a lack of better words, to bring that model in and then work with it on the chip. There's broadband memory is a huge thing that AMD's been able to capitalize on with their chiplet design. And so I think that, chiplet versus monolithic is going to be one of AMD's hugest advantages. I don't think that's going to count out NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA is going to be great at whatever things they do. But these are just things to consider. Another huge advantage to AMD is open source versus closed source. You're just able to work with so many more people. You're not limiting them to using your proprietary software, CUDA. ROCm's just really versatile, and it's becoming a favorite for sovereign AI, for development of AI in countries that are just getting off Go. People don't want a proprietary closed system coming in that they have to operate on. I think it's a big issue with security, national security, and AMD's kind of just positioning themselves to play nice with everybody and to be optimized at that. I should have said this in the first position, but another big thing that AMD has done is outmaneuvering Intel. At the time, Intel was such a giant. They were the David and AMD, they were the Goliath and AMD was the David. And taking out Intel and stealing their market share, I think, was a much bigger deal than what they're trying to do with NVIDIA right now. Now, that's not to say that NVIDIA is not formidable. I think that it's really the NVIDIA AMD show. Like back in the day, it was the Intel NVIDIA show. But I really think AMD's positioned themselves to become best in class, to become number one. And not to say that that's just gonna, spin Nvidia into the darkness. But I think that they're gonna become the majority favorite for a lot of these things, like data centers, AI at the edge, and I don't think they're limited to that as well, especially with their software stack becoming just so integral to optimizing models and working with more minds. And a big help to that is their CPU GPU synergy. They started with CPUs, and that's kind of how they took the market share from Intel. And so GPUs now, like that, they're becoming comparable to Intel. Their ability to work with both and then also have chiplet designs is just, I mean, they're creating an arsenal of weapons that I think are going to be increasingly difficult to defense against. And they're heavily focused on increasing the value to customers per dollar spent. That value creation process for companies that also creates, a a loop that customers don't really want to get out of. I think these are just big deals for AMD. Anyways, I think my video cut out, but yeah, just these synergies within the company, having just a huge arsenal of weapons are going to be increasingly difficult to defense against, and AMD's ability to really work that value creation process of reinvesting in the business, with capital expenditures so that their cash flow can increase and ultimately stock price tracks free cash flow over time. Their ability to continue developing the business to make it more and better at its earning power is just something that helps them stand out so much. And they have a lot of moats that are just difficult to work around. They have their chiplet process moat, which is a big deal in itself. Working on a technology like chiplets is not something that you could just recreate overnight. If Nvidia wanted to get into that game, it would take a lot of dedication and a lot of their attention away from what they're already doing to work on that. AMD's been working that through their process on every level, of their stack of chips, and it's just separating them that much more. So anyways, this is getting kind of to be a long video. I wanted this to be short, but I'll wrap it up there. I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in. I think AMD's in a great position. I think that they could be at their $600 mark within this next year, pushing 1,000 by 2027. I would be surprised if they hadn't hit that by 2030. And I think that's a pretty bearish way to put it. I'm more bullish on them hitting a number like that sooner than later. But anyways, I'm not going to loop back into it. But I really appreciate you guys for staying tuned. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Please give me please give me a like and subscribe so that I can grow the channel and so that you get notified whenever I come out with new content. Once again, thank you again for the 82 subscribers, and I'm super excited to see you guys in the next one.